Today, we're not going to learn from a sefer. I'm going to continue talking about the different customs and preparations for the Yom Noraim, for Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Simchas Torah. So this Shabbos is called Shabbos Shuva. Some call it Shabbos Teshuvah. Now, Shabbos Teshuvah, the reason for that is because it's the Shabbos, it's the one Shabbos within the Aseres Yemei Teshuvah. So that's why we call it Shabbos Teshuvah. Why do we call it Shabbos Shuva? Because the Haftarah of Shabbos Shuva is Shuva Yisrael Ad Hashem Elokecha, starting with the shin without the tuf. And hence we have two names for the Shabbos, either Shabbos Shuva or Shabbos Shuva. I would say most people call it Shabbos Shuva without the tuf. That's one point of reference.
Can you mute yourself? Can you mute yourself, please?
No, I'm not making any noise.
The wind is blowing from the fan.
Yonasan's sensitive, he hears. Okay. Yonasan will mute himself too. Now,
lacking the top seems to lack a certain tmimus quality.
I got it. Anyway, since Yonasan, when he comes back, I'll say what I wanted to say because something he mentioned last week. Anyway, another thing that Chabad does this Shabbos, Isser's not here to tell us if they do it in Boston or another Minhagim or maybe Hillel, from Tolna, I don't know. But in Chabad, this Shabbos, we light specifically a candle, and it's called a tshuva licht. Licht means a candle in Yiddish, licht. So we light Friday for Shabbos a 24-hour candle, even if Baruch Hashem you have your parents and it's not for Yisker, it's a tshuva licht. That's a Chabad custom, and I'm not sure anyone else does it, but those that follow Chabad should be aware of this.
I've never heard of that in any other states. It sounds like a nice custom.
Okay. Now, Yonasan, since you're back, I did have a discussion with Rabbi Paltiel about what you said in his name of talking to your wife, or I don't know I don't exactly remember your words, but I believe you said something to talk to your wife on Rosh Hashanah because the concept of Rosh Hashanah is binyan malchus, to build malchus, and a woman is malchus royalty, so therefore that idea. So you remember I reacted pretty surprised. I was very surprised. And I sent Rabbi Paltiel a note saying that one of my students said this in your name. And, just, did you say it and what'd you say? Whatever. So he said that he did say something to that effect. And he cited, he found the Rebbe said this. The Rebbe said it, Erev Rosh Hashanah, Tafshin Memches, 1987. And he sent me a copy of the Sikha. And the Rebbe said it on Erev Rosh Hashanah, not Rosh Hashanah. That's why I reacted. Because Rosh Hashanah and Chabad, we barely talk. And the whole concept, you should go talk to your wife, it just, whatever, it took me by surprise. Erev Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe said, and this is also a Chiddush, and only the Lubavitcher Rebbe could say it, and only he out of the 7 Rebbes would say it, because we're closer to Mashiach, we're more bottom line, and we need more these type of instructions. And he said, and the Rebbe said, on Erev Rosh Hashanah, he said the Rabbeim, his predecessors, would make a point to go in to their wives to get a bracha from them and to give a bracha, something like that. It wasn't to have conversation. That's what it says. I don't. I'm sure they had conversation, but the nekuda of the emphasis was to get a bracha and to give a bracha. And then the Rebbe said, since I heard this from my father-in-law and he heard it from his father, going back to the Alter Rebbe, he knew that I would not control myself and I would spill the beans. And then he said, if that's the case, and we hear it, he means all of us, including us today, so many years later, we have the power to give a bracha to our wives and they to us, and we should do that Erev Rosh Hashanah.
Wonderful.
That is the history of that. So I just wanted to, thank you. I really want to thank you for making me aware of it. Either I knew it and I forgot it, or I never knew it. So number one, thank you. You know, it says, Mitalmidai Yoser Mikulam. A teacher learns more from his students than anyone else. So here is an example. I learned this from you. So anyway, the bottom line is,
I like to be able to teach.
yes, thank you. You've taught me and us quite a bit over the years with the different insights you've shared. But anyway, that's the record, you know. And again, here I just want to conclude this. One should not make out of this a mountain. You see, this is what problem we have today. Anything any tzaddik or rebbe or mekubal says, we blow it up on the front page of the New York Times. The rebbe said it, and if you're motivated and do it, but you know what I'm saying? Especially in Chabad, real Chabad, they didn't, you know, the show, the splash. Now we understand that Rebbe did more of a little bit of the show and the splash and encourage that because that's the world we live in. So that's why his predecessors kept it as a secret within the family. And the Rebbe's the one that spilled the beans. What, his father-in-law couldn't spill the beans? The previous Rebbe couldn't share it with everybody? The world was not right. Reb Yoel told Professor Don Seaman of Emory University, I brought him to Reb Yoel for an interview. And in fact, it's in my book, in one of my latest books. I put in a part of the interview. Anyway, so he asked him a question. He says, where do we find in the Alter Rebbe's Torah, in Tanya, and Likutei Torah, and Torah Oyer, and the Alter Rebbe's teachings, that you should go and stand on the street and put on tefillin with Jews? Then he asked another question. Where do we find that we should go and talk to Goyim about the 7 Noachide laws? We don't find such a thing in Chabad Hasidus. So he asked him, you know, and the Rebbe was very frum and very much did only what he felt his ancestors would approve in a sense. So where did the Rebbe get the kind of audacity to do that? Because it seems to be out of the pale. But he asked this to Reb Yoel with their cheretz. So Reb Yoel gave him an answer with a personal experience, and I share that with you. I was there. I brought them together, so I was at the interview. So he told him like this: when I was a younger man, when I was a teenager or whatever in the 1940s, we went to Allenby. You know, they lived in Ramat Gan in Tel Aviv, the Lubavitch Chassidim. We went to Allenby Street. And Allenby Street, in those years, was already very secular in the sense that there were Yiddishisten who grew up in Russia and they didn't believe, you know, communists and, right? And there was many of them. That was a culture, a whole culture. Okay, so today you have the Meshugas of Tel Aviv today, but then you had the klipa of enlightenment and secularism and laughing at Frum Yidden. And he said, I and my friends went to put on tefillin with Jews on Allenby. That's what he said. Or maybe talk to them about keeping Shabbos, because the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about Shmira Shabbos, made a whole campaign in 1943, 44 about Shabbos observance, so maybe it was about that. So he asked the question, he said, I'm sorry. He said, no. He said, we did not do that. We didn't ask them to put on tefillin. He says, why? Today you go on Allenby and the Bacharim are out there Friday afternoon putting on tefillin with Yidden. Everyone knows that. Wherever you go, Friday there are Lubavitch Bacharim from the yeshivas. Because the time wasn't right. The world wouldn't hear of it at that time. Things changed, And now you could go on Allenby, you could go here, and yes, there are some people that still make problems, as has been reported, but overall, it's Mekubal. So the Rebbe Yoel said to the professor Seaman, the same is with the Seven Noachide campaign, which he came out with in 1983, and the same is with other such things. At the time, before the revelation that the tzaddik reveals something in the world is not a keli. The tzaddik senses the energy that Hashem puts into the world, and until a certain time, the world is not ready for it. For example, Hanukkah and Purim. Why the only mitzvahs that are abundant, not mitzvahs that are raisa? Because until Hanukkah happened, the energy was not there. It's not just they didn't have a war with the Greeks and all that. The world was not a vessel for the energy of Hanukkah. Hence, there was no Hanukkah. Once the world became a vessel for that energy, there was a Hanukkah nest, and we have Hanukkah. And the same, and so the Rebbe Yoel said the same is with all these things. So this explains why possibly the previous Rebbe and the Rebbes before did not share this minhag of talking to your wife Erev Rosh Hashanah, and the Rebbe did. And you'll ask why? Because the Rebbe who knew these things, because he's a tzaddik, and he sensed that now the world is ready from God, says, I want this now. And therefore the tzaddik, it comes out as a revelation for him. That is a Chabad belief based on Chabad Hasidus and Torah, etc. So I just say that there's nothing to be embarrassed with. I'm making it very clear. There's nothing to be embarrassed with to put on tefillin with a yid in the street. In fact, we see that all the Litvak organizations and all the other Hasidic organizations are doing the same thing. And Baruch Hashem, as I've told you many times, the previous representative came to America, I don't have a copyright on Yiddishkeit. I don't have a copyright. It's open to everybody. You know? The Babich Chabad led the campaign over the years in those areas. Great. Now, the Bells wants to do that with their people. Great. Ger has a campaign to give out Shabbos candles. I told you, my wife is very involved here in Borough Park. Every Friday, a group of women go to Kings Highway in Brooklyn here, and they stand and give out candles. This is exactly what the Rebbe said in 1974, 75, when he came out with the mitzvah, the campaign of girls should light candles from the age of 3 on. So maybe Ger doesn't say from what age you should light candles, but the idea of standing on the street, not standing next to your shul, next to your house, standing on King's Highway, which is walked by mostly non-observant Jews and non-Jews, and offering candles there. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. So the idea, I'm saying, but to go, to go and say, we're going to put up posters on the street. Make sure to talk to your wife on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Make sure to get a blessing for her. It's lo mekubal. In Hebrew we say, in Yiddish Hebrew, lo tam velo reach. You know that expression? It don't go. It's lo tam velo reach. You know what I'm saying? Common sense. But did the Rebbe say it? Yes. If you feel motivated to do it, but do it properly. That's a general thing. I want to go back now to Shabbos Shuva. We finished with Shabbos Shuva. Basically, the only minute that's different in Chabad is what I told you about the candle. Okay. Yes, Moshe. Yeah.
Before I want to make sure I ask this question. I want to know, in many kehillas on Shabbos Shuva, it's very common to have a Shabbos Shuva Drasha. The Rav gets up, I just wanted to ask about that vis-a-vis Chabad in general.
Okay.
I just want to know.
Okay.
I'm curious.
The answer is it's a Jewish tradition. It's not Chabad, it's not Satmar, it's not Sfar, the Litvak. However, in Chabad, the Rebbe would fabring Shabbos Shuva. So we consider the Shabbos Fabringen as the Shabbos Shuva's Drasha. However, If a Rav of a Chabad shul wanted to give a drasha between Mincha and Ma'ariv and there was time, see, there was a technical thing. The Rebbe started Fabring at 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon, Shabbos afternoon. It would go to 4:30 to 5:30. No, most people didn't eat Suda Shabbos. The Bachrim for sure, not. So they would go home to eat. By the time you came back, it was already Ma'ariv time. So there wasn't any time for the Shabbos Shuva Drasha. So most Chabad shuls, let's say in Crown Heights, didn't announce a Shabbos Shuva Drasha. But let's say outside of Crown Heights, if there was a larger Jewish community, it's very appropriate that a Chabad Rav should give, a drasha, yes, a Shabbos Shuva Drasha. So what I'm saying is that it's a Yiddish zak, it's a Jewish tradition, but in Chabad it's not emphasized because the Rebbe for 42 years spoke of Shabbos Shuva, and that was the drasha. So we didn't call it a drasha; we called it a farbrengen. Is that clear, Moshe?
Well, it is clear, but I want to clarify. I don't remember where I saw this, but you see that very often, the Shabbos Shuva drasha is like a pilpul. Not always, but many times, many kilos, it's a dafka, it's like a pilpul. It's like a very, halachic, very deep in terms of sources. But isn't it? I always was under the impression that Shabbos Shuva drasha, the idea is to have a drasha. The Rav wants to get up and gives a drasha to give people the, it's to give people the feeling. What's the serious to make tshuva? Tshuva.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yes, and I would say that the Rebbe was on the same page like you, and I think over the years he might have said it that, it's great to begin with divrei pilpul and divrei Gemara and all that, but there has to be a halachic emphasis. The Rebbe always emphasized that there should be a halachic emphasis and a more practical, walk away. It is, in fact, it's funny you ask because where I sit in shul in the morning, I'm just coming from there, right in front of me on the wall was all the Mara Mekaimas, all the citations for the upcoming Shabbos Shuva Drasha of the Rav, and they're all from the Gemara and the Noise Kalim and the commentaries and the Tzlach and the Minchas Chinuch, so right in my face. Yes, that is the tradition. That is the tradition. Why? One second. Why that is? I can only surmise that you feel. Let me say this: they feel that because we've progressed. This is I'm surmising, and the B'nai Torah. If you tell them we're going to talk halacha, not pilpul of halacha, just bottom line laws or an inspirational drasha, lots of them wouldn't come. Because they consider themselves elite, so they have to hear chidush. I would say that kind of took over. So even in Hasidic communities, like if you're not giving a Shabbos Shuba drasha or a Shabbos Hagadol drasha, the twice a year drashas that has meat and potatoes and all that, you look like a weakling. I believe that's the reason. So, and we would have to do research, and I haven't done it, but you're welcome to find out. I think in Europe it wasn't that way. I think in Europe, the Magid or the Rav got up Shabbos Shuva or Shabbos Hagadol, and Shabbos Shuva, he gave Musar, big Musar, and he made you cry. That was the Shabbos Shuva, and on the line of what you're saying, Moshe, but you're saying Al Pi Chasidus, Al Pi, but in the Litvische world, and this can be checked out pretty easily. I believe that was the emphasis. It wasn't about a Kvetch and Tosfos and a Minchas Chinuch and a Rambam. I don't know, so I might be wrong, but that's my feeling. Go ahead.
My understanding of this sugya is that it was not the minhag of Rabbeim to speak publicly except Shabbos Shuva and Shabbos Hagadol. Those are the two times the Rav would speak in shul.
You're talking about a Rav.
Yeah, Rav in a shul. There were Magidim who would travel and speak and go from town to town, and that was more how Musar got communicated and things, and that was sort of the entertainment, the spiritual entertainment of the town. But that was the one. Those were the opportunities for the Rav to sort of show the Kehillah what he was working on, what he.
Oh, really? Where did you heard this or you read this, Hillel?
That's my understanding. I don't remember where it came
remember.
from, but
Okay, this is something, it's good that we're discussing it. It's something that, if you guys come across anything in writing on this, I'd like to know, because I haven't researched it, I tell you the truth. I'm saying, I grew up in the community, and for example, Rabbi Simcha Elberg was a Rav here in Borough Park. He was part of the Agudas Rabbanim, and he was a Talmud Chacham, came from Poland. He was a big cup, and he gave a Shvi Shel Pesach a Drasha. And the Rebbe encouraged Lubavitchers to come out of respect to listen to it. And I lived in Borough Park, so for me it was not a big deal, right? So I remember one time he spoke about the importance of a beard. And it was funny because at that time he had a goat's beard, but he didn't, did he? Now he might have began with a Gemara, but it's more Drasha and Agoda versus Halacha and Pilpul. Okay, that's what I remember. Now that wasn't Shabbos Shuva, it wasn't Shabbos Agoda, it was Shabbos Shvi. It was the Shvi Shel Pesach between Mincha and Ma'ariv, Shvi Shel Pesach. But I hear you. What you're saying is very interesting. That's why historically you're saying that those are the only two times a Rav spoke. Okay, I don't know. I mean, you're saying that a Rav never spoke throughout the year from the Bima. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, Dafka, I think that is much more modern much more of a modern innovation that the Rav would speak. Regularly, a Shabbos Drasha, that kind of
right.
thing. Much more.
Before I forget, Yoini, what's your grandfather's name? I want to dedicate the learning to your grandfather.
Pesach Moshe.
Pesach Moshe.
From
Ben what? Ben what? Ben Ephraim. The Shamash Aliyah. It's your mother, your father's what side?
My father's father.
Father says the Shamash Aliyah, and you should bring the Refuah Shlema for your father.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Okay. Moshe, any more on this, or you clear?
Yeah, just one last question, just following up on what we're discussing right now. Is it was common in general in Hasidic circles that the Rebbe himself would only speak in terms of a tish or farbrengen, sicha, etc., but then when there's a drasha we're speaking about, I'm assuming that would be a Rav, like a Moritz Tzedek, a Posek, etc. He would be the one to give like a drasha.
Look. Let's say with our Rebbe, until our Rebbe, this idea of speaking every Shabbos didn't exist by the 6 previous Lubavitcher Rebbes. The previous Rebbe started to introduce more speaking, what they called sichas on a Shabbos or a Yom Tiv, or a Yutes Kislev, and but until then the Rebbe Rashab farbrained only 3 times a year. Now what Lubavitcher Rebbes did is they set a mimer that they set every Friday night. That's from the Alter Rebbe through our Rebbe. Our Rebbe didn't do it Friday night; he did it Shabbos afternoon. So in Chabad the emphasis was the mimer Hasidus. Okay, now. When you talk about other Hasidic movements, let's say Chernobyl, and others, they're compared to Chabad, there's not a lot of drushes and talks that their Rebbes gave over the history. That's they at a tish they said a vort. So the Shem Shmuel of Sochachav. In Poland, you have 7 volumes of his drush, of his Divrei Torah at the Tish. So it was verklach, short words on the parsha, very inspirational and very, Then when they wrote it, I think, wrote it more elaborately or more explained, or sometimes not, depending on their pen and their ability and all that. The Sfas Emes is a very hard language to understand. That's why the institution of Ger has made like a Hasidus Muveres on Sfas Emes. But the Rebbes didn't, like you say. Now, for example, bells. Now I understand that once a year the Belzer Rebbe gives a drasha on Simchas Torah Day, in the middle of the day. That's kind of the Lahavdil, the president's speech, the inauguration speech.
State of the Union.
Yeah, State of the Union. Yeah, it is. It is in a way. The State of the Union, bells, is that Simchas Torah talk. Now, whether his uncle, the Rabbarim, did that, I doubt it. Knowing a little bit about him, I doubt it. And whether his father, the Sar Sholem, did it, I doubt it. I don't know. But just like our Rebbe started to bring every Shabbos because he saw, otherwise we're gonna eat shont and fall asleep and waste our time. So he said, I'm gonna keep you here. Not every Shabbos, but I'll keep you here. That's it. And if I'm speaking, you're going to want to come. You have to come. Some came after Chont, some came before Chont, but they tried coming, right? So, for example, this whole thing, I don't know how it's now you guys in Eretz Yisrael, but this, this thing now I see here. Let's say in Boviv, they keep the people to 5 o'clock Rosh Hashanah. We finished 1:30 to 2 o'clock both days, and we started only 9. Now, Chabad does have the shortest davening on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. If you want short davening, you go to Chabad for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. No, we don't say most of the Pisgamin. We don't say, it's not part of the minhag. It's not that because we're rushing the davening.
It's also on Yom Tovim. They don't do the Megillah.
Right.
They don't say,
right. That's that. Yeah, that's the minhag. But I'm saying is, I grew up here in Borough Park, and Bubba finished at 2:33, 5 o'clock. So I asked people, they said the previous Rebbe started this because people were just wasting and talking on Rosh Hashanah, such a holy day. So I'll keep you in shul another 2 hours. So there's been also this practical aspect of readjusting even the way the Tish works, the Fabrengen, or the Shmuz. And I think this is true in all communities. Maisha, fine? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
But I want to leave with that. It is the right thing to go to a Shabbos Shuva Drasha if there's one in your community. Be respectful to the Rav, or someone else. You know what I'm saying? It's the right thing to do. And it has nothing to do with being a chassid, not a chassid, lebevi. Now, if you have multiple drushes and you like hearing it in English, go in English. You like in Hebrew. You like this, okay, fine. But yeah, your kids and grandkids should know that there's a Rav saying, a drasha, and anyone that dismisses this, that's for the misnagdim, That's for it's wrong. It's wrong, and it's not Yiddish, and it's not Chabad, and it's wrong. Now I myself don't run to drushes. I tell you the truth. I don't. Why? Because I'm used to from the Rebbe, and I'm wrong also. If there was one that was closer to my house and it was easy for me to walk, I would go. It's not that I'm against it, But if someone is able to, it's the right thing to do, to show that it's the right thing to do. But again, most
Kavod Torah.
Yeah, but Kavod Torah in a Hasidic way, right? Kavod Torah in a Hasidic way. The fact is, the Hasidic world, like Moshe said before, the Rebbes don't make these Shabbos drushes. So, for example, in the satellite Boviv shuls here, they'll have, even not the Rav, but someone who is a Talmud Chacham, they'll ask him to say a drasha of Pilpul. So the Hasidim have kind of gone along with this idea of sharing pilpul, but they'll do, minchas chinuch, things like that. You know what I'm saying? We have a Lubavitcher here who's world known. He's a Bok in Shas, Rabbi Reitport, Yitzchak Reitport. And he davens in our shul every Shabbos. And then we close family friends, and really a big Talmud Chacham. He sits and learns all his life. God blessed him. When the 1974, there's oil embargo, God blessed him, and overnight he became a very wealthy man. And he, for the last 40 years, I can remember, he has someone put up posters on the streets and in all the shuls that he's giving a Shabbos Shuva Drasha, Shabbos Hagadol Drasha. And he speaks like a real Russian Lubavitcher. He's 85 years old today, and I'm saying he keeps and he gives real Rambam and deep insights. It definitely follows the classic Litvish Shabbos Hagadol Drasha. That's his style. What? Yes.
Does he speak in your shul?
No. Oh, wait. So in our shul, what I've seen them do now is Shabbos to Mincha Ma'ariv, by us, we have Nigunim and then a Maimer. And they don't want to change that. So there's not enough time. So what they have him do, they have him speak between Mincha Ma'ariv Friday night. Yes. So kind of, he gives somewhat of his drasha for us on the Shabbosim Friday night. That's been implemented last year, and I think it's the right thing. It's covered for him, and it's the right thing that our youth should know that this is a Yiddish tradition.
When you said that someone put up the Marmakonos,
yes.
So who gives that Josh?
No, Rabbi Reitport, when he announced it, was a full page of Marmakomos on all the streets of Borough Park.
No, you said before that in your shul.
Oh, that was a Shomer Shabbos who I davened during the week. The Rabbi Tirnauer, he's a Chassidish person. He's a Chassidish Rav, and he gives the drasha with all those Marmakomos. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that the Hasidic world seems to me, those that do give the drasha have gone along the Litvish world and really made the drasha, that. Now, I'm sure they end with a story or a vert, Look, Rabbi Soloveitchik, Rabbi Yasha Ber, who was the master of drashas, for his yahrzeit of his father and his mother, he gave what was known as a yahrzeit shir, twice a year. 2,000 people packed the auditorium in Washington Heights. The YU Auditorium, Lampert Auditorium, 2,000 people. The Rav of the shul that Rabbi Malinowitz, the new Rav, what's his name, Rabbi David?
Yeah.
He told me, he was there many times and he brought others, so you can talk to him about it. It was incredible. And what was the Seder? The first 2 hours, Rabbi Soloveitchik gave Pilpul, and the next 2 hours he gave Agoda. 4 hours, no one left. 4 hours, no one left. And with the Rebbe, 4 hours of Fabrenga, no one left. So anyway, so Rabbi Soloveitchik, who was a Litvak, he was a brisker, so he definitely showed his koyach in Torah, in Rambam, but then he gave 2 hours of Agoda, and it was geschmack, it was beautiful. But the Rebbe always emphasized, halacha and maisa. Always, you got to bring it down. So what should we do? The bottom line, light a candle if you're following this minhag, this Shabbos. I remember, I told you about that in the year 2000 with that gathering in Crown Heights against the Kol of the Shofar Katz, that Warner Estart dressed up, therapy for guys that had issues with their father, in the Frum community, and it was getting all over, including Chabad. So they called a special meeting December 24th at night, little night, when you're not allowed to learn. There were 2,000 people in the room, and Rabbi Yoel and Rabbi Shochat from Los Angeles, and Rabbi Heller from Crown Heights, a Rav, were on the dais, and Rabbi Yoel spoke. So after he spoke, Rabbi Shochat speaks. And Rabbi Shochat is a great guy, but he can go on. He can go on like for an hour. And after he sat down, after speaking for an hour, Rabbi Yoel Khan went to the mic. He wasn't supposed to do that. No one asked him to do that. And he said, for the purpose of not forgetting the bottom line, let me repeat the bottom line. He meant to say, after Rabbi Shochat spoke for an hour, and he spoke nicely and well and important, but the lengthiness, you forget the bottom line. So let me repeat what the bottom, and the Rebbe did that. Rabbi Yoel did that because the Rebbe did that. Okay, Chevra, listen, I want to talk about Sukkot Monday. So and then that's it. Then till Cheshvan we'll resume. I mean, Shem Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. But if you can, you're up to it. Monday we still can, and hopefully Moshe's son Usher asked me to fabrain for his group from the Yeshiva Migdal Emek Sunday night. So I told him I can't take too much l'chaim because I got to teach my students, including your father, Monday morning. He says, I understand. He asked me, what should we get you? White vodka, scotch, wine? I said, whatever you get, I'm not drinking much because I got to be fresh for the Monday morning. Have a great Shabbos Shuva. Gmar Sima Tova to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.